Singularity.
My name is Nicola, aka Socrates, and you're watching Singularity One on One. If you guys enjoyed this show, you can help me make it better in a couple of ways. You can go and write a review on iTunes, you can leave a comment on YouTube, or you can simply make a donation. Today, for the second time, my guest on the show will be BioViva CEO Liz Parrish. Liz recently made headlines around the world by administering two types of gene therapies on herself. And I thought it would make for a fascinating conversation if I bring her back on the show so that she can tell us all about it. So without further ado, welcome back, Liz Parrish.
Hi, Nicola. It's great to be here. I missed you over these last few months.
Oh, thanks very much. Well, you've been making headlines around the world, so I've been looking forward to this conversation myself, I have to say.
I have too.
So let's start by filling in people on all the sort of the interesting, juicy details. So first of all, what were the two gene therapies that you administered on yourself? Where, when, and how did it happen?
Okay, so BioViva is a company that treats biological aging with gene therapies. So we chose two gene therapies that we've been looking at for a very long time that target some form of biological aging, and I took both of them. So one of them is a myostatin inhibitor. It's a gene that creates a protein that keeps myostatin from keeping you from building muscle. So it helps you build up your muscle mass. Frailty kills 6% of the population. And that loss of muscle mass and the gain of fat that we get over time could be attributed to things like diabetes type 2 and other diseases. The second gene therapy that I took was a telomerase-inducing gene therapy. It's the H-TERT gene. It creates an enzyme called telomerase, which lengthens telomeres in cell culture and in animal studies. And what that does is create a biologically young cell. It also creates the ability for the cell to replicate more times over time. So we have basically an endpoint to replication of our cells. They can only replicate so many times, and stem cell depletion is a killer. So this actually allows the cells to replicate a multitude of times and maybe infinitely if you have it turned on permanently.
So how long ago was it that you administered these two gene therapies? One for muscle mass and another for anti-aging.
Okay, so we did this on September 15th. So as of tomorrow, it will be officially 4 months since I had taken the therapies.
And have you grown a third hand or an extra eye, or I don't know, any side effects so far? Something weird happening?
No strange side effects. We know what these genes do. We didn't anticipate any side effects, or I wouldn't have taken them. Of course, a third eye might be useful, but I think that would be a big concern right now, since it's not considered fashionable yet. So no, we had no adverse side effects.
Okay, before we dive into all the details of the pros and the cons and everything, let me just ask you, can you give us a little more detail? So you told us it's anti-aging and muscle mass therapies. You told us that they were administered on September the 15th, so it's going to be 4 months tomorrow. Mm-hmm. Where and when and how was this done?
Well, we're a bit elusive about that, I know, but we are saying we're being open about that. We did it in South America, and we did it in a medical clinic with a medical doctor and a medical staff.
Mm-hmm. So you were under supervision?
Absolutely, yes. I don't suggest anything else.
Just to alleviate if my audience has any concerns in terms of your vagueness, what's the reason behind you not sharing those specifics with us?
Well, there's a lot of reason. We actually need to protect the staff that was on site at the time for a myriad of unknown reasons to their careers. These people are very important people in the world that would help us take a chance to create a therapeutic that may save the rest of the world from aging diseases in the future. This is something that we would just do naturally, is to protect identities of people.
So you're basically expressing some kind of a concern for the safety and or perhaps the professional reputations of the people who assisted you in doing this?
I have a feeling that their reputations are going to be beautiful. They're going to have a beautiful future of their reputations. But right now, we're just protecting their privacy. We certainly don't want people contacting them and asking them, unnecessary questions. They're busy people with professional lives.
Let me ask you this. Have those two gene therapies ever been tested before, be it in animal models, be it in other human subjects?
Yeah, so the myostatin inhibitor actually had been tested in every acceptable animal model, including primates. And with another group in the US, it's going through FDA clinical trials for muscular dystrophy right now. So that one we felt really good about. Our medical doctor for BioViva took that gene therapy himself over 5 years ago now. So the second one, though, the telomerase induction, had shown great promise in animal model. It had been in mice in two very big studies, one by Ron DePino and the other one by Maria Blasco. It had been used in cell culture, human cell tissue, over and over again with great results. So we're pushing this one forward as quickly as possible because it really has the most promise in treating biological aging as a disease.
And what were the sort of preliminary results, whether in the animal models or in other human subjects, at the time that you decided to undergo such a test yourself?
Yeah, well, the animal studies, the mouse studies were stellar. They had reversal of biological aging. They had better organ function. They had better and increased size in brain, from atrophied old brains to youthful brains. Everything from the interior of the animals to the exterior improved in quality and youthfulness.
And what about the human subject?
The human subjects, that was with the myostatin inhibitor, and actually that's going very well. It's in phase 3 clinical trials with Becker's muscular dystrophy right now, and starting phase 1 with Duchenne's muscular dystrophy. So we felt very confident about that.
Okay, so let's just be clear. The myostatin inhibitor is for muscle mass.
Yes.
For treating sarcopenia, as you said, and then the telomerase lengthening one was the anti-aging therapy.
Yeah, well, we consider them both, I guess, if you want to say an anti-aging therapy. Our company is vastly focused on disease mitigation. And so that's kind of how we talk about it, is we talk about it by that we're trying to mitigate diseases of old age and come back and cure childhood disease as well. So I think that they both tackle biological aging very strongly.
Tell us a little bit more about sort of the study, the study protocol. Was there someone who designed the study protocol? Did you do that yourself? And what's kind of the process? What's the the regular blood tests that you undergo? What's the monitoring data that you try to collect? How often is it collected? When do you expect results? And just give us the idea of the design of the study.
Right. So we have our own protocol at BioViva, and we're developing that vastly as we go. We were prepared. We had a lot of pre-blood banked that was taken from me before procedure. We had tissue samples banked. We have gone on to do a myriad of blood tests, MRIs, and telomerase should be lengthening the telomeres. And so we have actually used two companies that that actually measure telomerase. They measure telomeres. So, so we've got a lot of different samples out, and these are all with third-party groups, and so they will show us the data, and that's the most important part, is the data.
And how? What? So, can you be a little more specific, or not, on the kind of the types of data that you collect? How often do you collect it? What are the biomarkers that you're monitoring, and things like that, perhaps?
Right. So the data that we're collecting is obviously telomere length. We are monitoring some organ function. So there's a myriad of blood tests that I do for that. We're going to have one group monitor methylation of the cells to see if they actually look and behave more youthfully. And we'll be doing tissue samples. We're also doing MRI imaging of the muscle mass, and that will be telling as well.
And how often do you undergo those tests? Do you do that weekly, monthly, or how does that work?
Well, it depends on the test. So some of them I do more often than other tests. Blood work I obviously do more often than I would do something like an MRI and certain sorts of imaging. So, and then some of them we have pre-samples, but we don't have the post-samples run yet. So we're waiting a certain amount of time for each one of these to get done.
And what would be a sort of an independent way, perhaps a third party that's kind of removed or independent from you, as a way to confirm or deny, in other words, to review and to verify the results?
Right. So we have one group working on that at Harvard, and we ask other groups to come forward. Groups that are interested, that are from institutions, we are happy to send them samples. We would love to have this verified in any way possible, whether it works or whether it does not work.
So, do you suffer yourself from any relevant medical condition that requires to be treated by such therapies, such as for muscle wasting disease or aging?
Yeah, so I suffer from biological aging as a disease. We all do. And this is something that we need to work on very, very quickly if we want to have a future. I know that it sounds very odd to people. People wonder why we would do that. A lot of people want to live their golden years, refusing the idea that they'll die in the future. But this is a really important series of tests that we're doing. This is a very important company to the future of mankind. The minute we can defeat these diseases like Alzheimer's, cancer, heart disease, we're obligated to do so. So we think that these therapeutics may in fact help in these areas, and so it's a mandate that we try them and see if we can help people.
Yeah, but what I was trying to get at is there any other specific condition above and beyond what some would qualify as the normal or regular aging and or muscle wasting as we tend to get older?
Right.
That would kind of create incentives for you to actually go ahead and test these, or are you basically just a sort of a healthy volunteer with no other impetus?
Right. I understand the question, but what I'm trying to tell you is that even in very young people, we can see the buildup and the accumulation of junk. We can see the buildup of the things that will kill them in their later years. We're able to identify Alzheimer's as early 20s now. We can find atherosclerotic plaques in young children. We can find cancer cells in young children, and all throughout our life. We're just 80% more likely to get cancer after the age of 65. So I would definitely say that since I turned 30, I have had about the attrition of about 1% of my muscle mass every year since then. I'll be 45 this month. And definitely with the right amount of imaging and scans and various things, we should already be able to pinpoint one of the couple things that I would be dying of in the next 40 years.
Do you think that you are taking kind of too much of a personal risk yourself in sort of administering these therapies on yourself rather than, let's say, allowing other volunteers to do that work? Perhaps terminally ill patients, or perhaps people who are having a much faster rate of regression than you have? Because you've mentioned 1%, that's kind of like the average.
Right.
What would someone would say the normal rate of deterioration? But we know that there's a number of health conditions where that's accelerated tremendously.
Yeah, absolutely. I do believe that somebody who was terminally ill should have taken these therapeutics. I think they should have had the right to access these therapeutics, and I think our company should have had the right to give these in the U.S. To any terminally ill patient. Unfortunately, there's a lot of regulation and red tape, and we're trying to expedite good work. I went ahead and took the chance because I believe that this risk could create a healthier world. And with one of the therapies never being tried in a human before, we felt that it was an ethical issue, that we were the company that took the first chance and saw what happened.
So basically, that's kind of answering also the elusiveness question too. I mean, why you couldn't do this in the United States as you would have preferred to do it, and why you have had to go abroad to try and do it, and why kind of now you're giving us some kind of a vague or not too specific answers because of that concern and that issue, I think.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing that we've really been vague about is, who the medical staff was and the exact location. And I mean, we've been very transparent about everything else. So I can't feel sorry for anyone who doesn't like that. You don't know exactly where I sleep or exactly where I go shopping either. And so, I guess I don't see that should be an issue in itself. We did have a film crew there. They did video the therapy, and that was fantastic. They'll continue to follow up, and they want to be there when I do some of the blood work. They're in a different state than I am. But the most important thing is that we've started, and that the world learns about this and understands about this. We're not asking anyone else to come forward. We're not asking anyone in my age range to come forward. We want to move forward to use these therapies in terminally ill patients. We want people to have the right to use them. There's over 100,000 people die every day of aging diseases, and this is a mandate. This is very important. I mean, we just lost a few great performers of our days: David Bowie, Alan Rickman, and Lemmy from Motorhead. We lost them all to aging diseases since this year started, and I think that this is a mandate to rush to our future. This is a future for everyone. The minute we can cure disease, we should be doing that.
Yeah, I remember being a teenager in Bulgaria and listening to Lemmy's music at the time.
Yeah, he's cool. He was cool.
Yeah, he was very cool. In the 80s, especially, Motorhead was very popular.
Very cool.
Let me ask you, Liz, why start? There's so many therapies. There's so many amazing gene therapies that one could start doing work on.
Yeah.
Why start with these two? Why these two were at the top of the list for you?
So we're going for the biggest impact. So definitely lengthening telomeres, that science has the best work behind it as far as tackling biological aging. It has a lot of promising research, and we were really excited about that research. The myostatin inhibitor is it's a real complement actually to the telomerase lengthening gene therapy. And this felt like a lower hanging fruit. Sarcopenia is something that a lot of companies are going after. Eli Lilly, Pfizer, even the Buck Institute has been working on sarcopenia. This is kind of an entry level for the enthusiast of people who want to live younger and better now, who aren't thinking about bigger picture things. They're still thinking in lines of hormone replacement and growth hormone and things like this. They're thinking of, if I get stronger, I will live better and well. And that is true, especially in later years. So this is a benefit to these type of therapeutics, that these are more entry level. This is where people are thinking now, reversing biological aging and potentially the looks of someone, reversing that back to a young state is where we want to be. We're not an aesthetic company. We're not a cosmetic company. We're a disease mitigation company. But we know that if you look younger all the way through, cross sections all the way through your organs and everything, you are less likely to die of the aging diseases. So this is sort of the mother lode. This is the most powerful therapy that we could be going after. So both of them complement one another.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And of course, I agree with you. And I actually think that it's not 100, but more like 150,000 people dying per day.
Yeah, I always try to keep it conservative. That other 50,000 just it breaks my heart even more.
Now, specifically on the kind of the process, I'm curious, why did you decide to do them both simultaneously? I mean, is there no risk of sort of cross pollination or sort of creating too much noise in the signal and cannot be and running the risk of not being able to differentiate which therapy led to which kind of what kind of changes and when and how? So why test two at a time rather than one, and then be very clear about what the result was?
Right. So the medical team that we had worked with, some of them had worked in some pretty serious diseases in the past. For instance, one of our medical advisors had worked with AIDS patients. And, when they first started treating AIDS, they started treating AIDS from, one type of therapy for each person, but each one of those therapies targeted a different part of the disease. And what was happening in those early years is patients were dying. They were having some sort of benefit, but dying. But the companies were refusing to put the cocktail together initially, and that's eventually what they did and had much better results. So we looked at these two gene therapies and we looked at their mechanisms, and they actually benefit each other very well for several different reasons. And we decided to go for the harder hit and actually use them use them together. Now, in the future, we'll use them separately in disease states and run forward with trials offshores to see how each one of them works in a specific disease state. But together, we think that they work better.
So it seems that there's some kind of a synchronicity between the two therapies, where perhaps, or at least you're hoping that they would kind of enhance each other's efficacy, if you will.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very interesting. So before we actually start discussing if and whether you have any actual results that we can talk about, let me keep our conversation a bit longer in the theoretical realm. So let's talk about the best case and the worst case scenario. So let's start with the best case scenario first, because this is the motivation that made you attempt to do this in the first place. So in your view, what's the best case outcome that you're hopefully aiming for with these two therapies?
Oh, wow. Well, the best case outcome is that we see a reversal of biological aging. We see the system become healthier, and we can start to work on our plan of how we get these therapies to the world, to people. That's the best case scenario. Of course, we still have to be very careful. Each patient, n equals 1 is a big deal, but n equals 100 and n equals 1,000, even better. So we need to make sure, of course, that they work the same in each one of those persons.
And the flip side of the coin is the worst case scenario. We know that most therapies, in fact, as high as, according to some estimates, 90% of things that are being researched or trialed with human subjects by big pharmaceutical companies actually never make it to market and don't actually seem to work, especially when migrating from the animal model into the human subject. So let's talk about the worst case scenario. What's the worst case scenario?
So the worst case scenario would be no outcome. That would be the worst case scenario to me. A lot of people come up with a lot more grueling and horrible, disgusting outcomes like death and cancer. But to me would be no outcome. We just don't see the biomarkers change. That would be, that would be the worst case scenario.
Right. And I agree that will be the worst case scenario for the collective, sort of for humanity, or for us interested in this topic. But for you specifically, personally, I would also have to say that those people do have a point, that you are kind of taking perhaps a huge risk personally, and there's a lot worse case scenario than that pertaining to your own self and health and so on.
Right. And, I mean, I'm always a little bit surprised by that. Sometimes, I think that people think that they need to protect other persons. I went into this knowing full well what I was doing. I went into it reading every paper that I could, examining everything I could, and this is my life. I studied death for 2 years. I know how I'm going to die if I didn't do it. So I wasn't really going to take the status quo. So I don't have the same fears and worries that other people do, and I hope that people understand that this was my human right to do, and I hope they enjoy the data, however it comes out, positive or negatively from this.
Now you're blowing my mind here with a bunch of things that you said and you have been saying. So tell us first of all, how does one study death for 2 years?
Well, what we launched on was the first presentation that we launched on was actually called How We Die. And it was a perspective. I was actually warned not to do this presentation. I was told no one will like this presentation. Nobody wants to sit and listen to how we'll die. But I was determined to do it, and I did, and I got a great reception for it. And it is basically how we die by the numbers, how we've died historically. If I was somebody in 1665, I've certainly outlived my neighbors by over 10 years now. We used to die of infectious disease. That was considered normal. And I did this presentation vastly to prove to people that what we consider normal is a situational opinion, that in fact it is not a fact. It doesn't have to be a fact. We can change the way we die, and science has done that historically since we started science. We have changed the precipice of how we live, and I think that vastly how we die has to do with how we live. How we see the world changes when we change that one thing. So this is what I did. I looked at the numbers. We studied greatly the numbers of people who would die of cancer and heart disease. Those are the two biggest killers. And then you go on to kidney failure and diabetes type 2 and Alzheimer's. And you take much of the childhood diseases right off the board because they don't even compute anymore. But we know that they happen, and they are devastating. So that's what I spent my time doing. And I'm kind of happy to not know exactly how I'll die.
Oh, but I thought you said that you knew how you would die.
I did until the moment I took those therapies.
Okay, and now you know you have changed the outcome, or you hope that you would?
We don't know. We don't know, but it's possible that we have, and it's possible that that possibility gives me some hope. When I came home, I wrote down into a transcript that I'm turning into, my diary of things that are going on. I wrote down, if you could do one action that might save 1,000 people or 1,000,000 people or 1,000,000,000 people, but you might die from doing it, would you do it? And then I wrote, I would, and I did, and I'm going to tell you my story. And, I really didn't know what would happen then. I didn't know what would happen the next day. And I just feel very strongly that we have to pioneer a new medicine, that we cannot wait for these slow routes of money-making machine companies that have had no incentive to cure disease. That's not their business. We need business that cures disease. And I think what's funny is recently I saw the interview. I didn't watch it, but I saw the interview that I did with you a while back. And I noticed in the picture I was smiling. There's me and you, and our heads are together, and I'm smiling because, I knew I was about to do that. I knew when I was talking to you that I was. And and I felt confident about it then, and I still feel confident about it. And I'm okay with whatever outcome comes, as long as it can be put into data that helps people in the future. That's the most important thing, because if we don't do it, we know the outcome. People say, oh, why would you take a risk? But you know you're going to die. What are you going to do with your time here? Are you going to hang on to your wheelchair and your cane to the last minute? Throw it aside before you even have to grab hold of it. It's time to make a change. We have to pioneer a new future. We've got to do it together.
Wow, those are very powerful and passionate words. But perhaps speaking of those risks again a little more, can you share with us what Aubrey de Grey's comments were when he heard that you had tested those therapies on yourself?
Let's see. I after doing it, I contacted someone in the company to let them know that I had in fact done it, and the word, those persons started contacting other persons in our scientific advisory board. And I cannot say that this was Aubrey, but I know that one person was contacted in the scientific advisory board, and the gentleman that helps with BioViva called me back, and he said, well, so-and-so will talk to you if you live for 9 days. And I said, well, that's fine. I'm going to live for 15. And I've just kind of kept going since then. So I think it's gonna be okay.
Well, I really hope so, Liz. I really hope so, Liz. It's been 4 months now, so let's talk a little bit about what everyone wants to know is like the results now. So first of all, have you grown a fourth hand? And or I think I asked you that already, but what are the results? We discussed, I think already, we touched that you don't have any negative effects on you.
Yeah.
Are there any positive ones, and what are they if you do?
So, I mean, those are the things that are really hard to talk about, because, there is the effect of thinking that one has been affected, right? So there's the placebo effect. And so if you ask me about things, I will probably tell you a myriad of benefits that I've seen. But to actually turn those into scientific fact, we have to gather the data. And so we're still gathering that. We're going to gather that over the next 18 months. And then we'll have a bigger picture. But, data is king, and the scientific data is number one. So I feel great. I'm sleeping really well. I'm feeling stronger. I'm appearing to build muscle mass.
Hulking up, and are you getting younger?
I don't know. I definitely have more muscle mass than I had before. I have actually spoken to people in the bodybuilding industry. They have analyzed my body and said that I have more muscle mass than I should for my age, for someone who's not taking testosterone and hormones.
Are you working out?
Oh, I always work out. I've been an avid runner and a workout enthusiast for years and years. So that's by the way, guys, that's the number one way to keep your body as young as possible. Eat healthy and exercise. Number one. Weight.
Well, you look so fantastic at 45. I mean, I'd never say you're 45.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, but as far as like biologically reversing an aging, we don't know. That'll be in the data. That'll be the more important parts. That will take time to find out, and that'll be an organ function and various other tests. I'm anxious to find out.
Yes, we all are actually, and actually that's one of the questions that Dr. Michael Fossil sent me for you. He was asking. Namely, how will you know if your therapy is successful, especially since you're healthy and not obviously old or ill?
Yeah, well, I think that I talked about that. So biologically, I have many signs of aging. Biologically, my cells are not young. They're not as old as an 80-year-old, but they're definitely middle-aged cells. So we should see a change there. I just talked to Michael Fossil's class the other day. He brought me in on Skype. That was fun. I like him. He's got great energy. So we'll be looking at a lot of biomarkers. If he has some suggestions, he's welcome to throw some out. I know that he'll be looking for similar things in his patients as he raises money for his company.
Yes, but that was kind of my question was like, can you be by any chance anymore? Like, do you have a baseline of comparison of something that would say, this is how it was before test, this is how it is after test, therefore we failed or we succeeded greatly?
Right. So that's what I was telling you. We have pre-blood stored. We've sent some of it out. We have all of my blood work from before the therapies. We have my telomere length before the therapies. And all of those will be looking at those biomarkers. We have an early MRI, so we can look at later MRIs. So we're doing everything against the baseline to what happens, 1 year and 18 months out from therapy.
Okay, so you're giving us another 14 months of suspense, I guess.
Yeah, and it'll probably even go on from there. This will be a long term study. People who are interested in these sort of therapies have to realize that humans are very long lived. If you watch me to the end of even my natural days, you'll probably die waiting for a cure. Right? That's why we started now, because we really don't have a lot of time, and the data that we can collect over my lifetime will vastly help people who are being born right now.
Okay, but if we were to, because when we test a new therapy, the hope is that we would, then the next step is that we would kind of say, have a sort of a wide scale, popular acceptance, providing that we have positive results, and therefore we will make it available to others or to the majority of the population.
Right.
So you must have a sort of a cutoff timeline point after which you kind of know whether that's successful or not, and whether you can actually start undertaking any other steps.
Right. So that's why we've set the 12 to 18 month guideline, and then we can analyze things from there. What we'd like to do as a company is raise money to actually try these therapeutics in the terminally ill offshores now. There we should see a more dramatic potential change, and especially in much older persons. And we're hopeful that we would obviously see their diseases remiss and potentially go away altogether. But it's very difficult to work, in people who are really sick, and the outcomes are unknown. If the body is too sick, you can't really get ahead of it. One of the great reasons for me to take the therapeutics is this. We know that in the future, once we tackle this aging paradigm, this aging problem, this biological problem of the cells, we'll be giving these therapeutics younger and younger. We just need safety and efficacy. We need to ensure that they don't affect the germline. And what I mean by that is they don't affect offspring of those patients. Maybe at first we'll give them in maybe the 40s to 50 range out of childbearing years, and then we'll move back. Preventative medicine happens a long time before you get sick. So certainly right now it appears the ethical thing is to work in the very sick, and we need to, because we need to save those persons. But in the future, I would say 20 or 30 years, I hope we'll be using these younger and younger so that people don't get sick to begin with. We have to stop battling the symptoms of biological aging. These are really expensive diseases, and they have not moved from the map since we started. And that's because we were never tackling them in the right way. We have to tackle biological aging. That's the only way to nip those diseases in the bud.
Mm-hmm. And the follow-up question that Michael Fossil has is, what will you do next, provided that you're successful? Do you plan to expand this study into dozens or more patients? And you kind of touched on that, but perhaps you can add some more.
Right. Our hope is
For example, will you be treating healthy and perhaps wealthy patients, or will you aim for those with age-related diseases specifically?
Bioethics is a very funny thing, but certainly we have probably our own bioethics in the sense that we believe in the right of trying to save every life, but we do believe that right now we need to start in the terminally ill. The therapeutics should be made for the terminally ill so that we can get the data. I can't give you a therapy that I don't know what's going to happen to in 2 years if you're relatively healthy and could live those 2 years without incident, right?
Hmm.
So, we do need to raise money to run trials offshore the U.S. We can run them at a fraction of the cost. That's the big benefit. And we can actually get these into people so we can find out if they work for you. And that's what's important to you, right? I think that vastly the people who put their money into this will be people who want to own a company like this, who want this sort of future for themselves, want to ensure they get this future, because you can't just know that this type of therapeutic exists and think that suddenly when you're on death's doorstep, somehow you're going to get a therapeutic and get it administered to you. People need to own these sort of companies, and they need to get their themselves behind them. We need those sort of enthusiasts, and we need to get these patients in who have no other option right now, and see if we can in fact save their life. With a myostatin inhibitor, we'd like to start with people as young as 60. And see if we can increase their muscle mass, which we should be able to do. 60, yeah.
60. Okay.
Yeah, 60. Not 6. I don't know what
I thought you said 16. I was a bit.
No, oh, no. 16 should be 16-year-olds. And people over 60, and see if we can, increase their muscle mass and keep them from dying from frailty, and see if we can increase their insulin sensitivity with that increased muscle mass and keep them from getting diabetes type 2.
Yeah, as you said, we need not only patients and investors, but we also need pioneers or people who are willing to take the risk, such as yourself. So I want to congratulate you for that.
Thank you.
Let me just ask you about the costs. What are the costs associated with any such potential treatment? And given the potential for economies of scale, how do you think that cost would change if we're treating, let's say, a few people, if we're treating hundreds of people, and if we're having a mass scale market adoption of the treatment? How is that cost going to change? Because that's very important and kind of connects to the issue of ethics. If it's very unaffordably expensive, obviously very few people will be able to afford it.
Right. So this is a big motivation of our company. We want to get those costs down, and we can do that. We need investment to build the pipeline and get the cost of the therapeutics down. Right now, each one of these therapies is hundreds of thousands of dollars. Each therapy has to be made for each person right now. It's a specialized procedure. It's a slow procedure. It takes weeks or months to get a therapy. So we need to get the pipeline going. We need to get it up and running, and we can definitely get these costs down. This is one of the great things about our company, is that we want to not have to raise the amount of money that these companies that are going through the FDA in the US are raising. So we're seeing companies right now going through gene therapy clinical trials. They'll come out with a treatment, maybe a cure, that will cost over $1 million. That's where these therapies lie right now, but our company has the ability to half and quarter those costs within a few years, and then even get them less expensive after that. Over time, I would say in 5 to 7 years, these could be built at such a scale with manufacturing around the world that they could probably be disseminated for, maybe tens of thousands or less, at prices that insurance companies would definitely want to cover, because they would be covering less costs in the future for these patients.
Mm-hmm. Oh, very interesting. So you're saying actually, if we have that therapy working, then the insurance company will have an incentive to pay for it, because in the long run, it's going to cost them less, rather than allow people to simply age and deteriorate as they currently do.
Oh, absolutely. And the U.S. government itself, among other governments, could save trillions of dollars just in one presidential term. hint, hint, nudge, nudge. Coming up to an election, who's covering this? I don't know. I don't think anyone is. But you want to save, trillions of dollars for the
I actually
government.
interviewed him a month and a half ago, and he promised me the position of a Secretary of State.
That's cool.
So Zoltan Istvan is the first openly transhumanist presidential candidate in the United States, who also founded the Transhumanist Party. And for him, defeating death and aging is issue number one. So that's the fundamental kind of goal that he's running on.
Yeah, I've met him, and I think that that's really interesting. Obviously, we're a disease mitigation company, but people like that because if you're healthy, we don't know what you'll die of, right? We've already talked about that. Do you go on and on healthy, or is there something else? So I'm really happy that he's starting that conversation, and I hope that he's starting it in a way that really gets everyone interested outside of his own movement, because disease mitigation is very important, and I think that is a strong part of the transhumanist movement, is to become better, stronger, smarter, faster people, which is something that, BioViva has always talked about.
Yes, and hopefully not aged, but just smarter and better in every way without...
and youthful. Right. So, we want you to chronologically get older. We certainly don't want you to die in young of years. We want you to live as many years as you would like. We just don't want you to die of biological aging. It's costly. It's inhumane. It sounds like such a frivolous conversation, but, go to a nursing home, look at people who are dying of Alzheimer's and cancer and various diseases. This is not a humane way to let people die. The minute we can stop that, we need to stop that.
Liz, let me throw in a couple of other quick audience questions in the last couple of minutes of our interviews here. So first of all, Michael C. sent me a question. It's a little bit general, but I thought perhaps you'd like to comment about, he says, ask Liz Parrish about what she thinks about the current CRISPR debate in gene editing and why or why not this is the way gene editing should go.
Well, I think that the interesting thing, a lot of the problems with business and moving forward is patenting and licensing and various problems therein. I'm not sure if he's talking about that or if he's actually talking about what's considered the ethical issues of gene editing. Can you choose one? Maybe we should talk about the ethical issues of gene editing of embryos, because that's been one of the hottest topics in the news is whether in fact we should be editing the embryos. So our company does not do that. But I do say that I think that is the future. If there is a known gene that causes a disease that's costly and takes away from that human's life, and that we know that editing that gene out and replacing it with a good copy would help, that's a mandate. Why would we bring sick children into the world? I don't understand that. We do so many things under the guise of ethics that are not ethical at all. We let people die every single day that should be taking a therapeutic and trying a therapy, a gene therapy, a molecule, anything to save their lives, and yet we consider it more ethical to let them die. And we're actually condemning these children, these embryos, to a future of sickle cell anemia, hemophilia, and various other things that will in fact be curable diseases in the very near future. But they should be cured before these children are born, and there's worse than that. So
we're in support of CRISPR gene editing.
I am in full support of it. That's kind of our business. Our business is to try to cure disease at the cellular level and make a better world, a more humane world. That's these technologies go hand in hand with that. Now, as far as the licensing and the patenting rights, now we run into yet another problem. We had zinc fingers in the past, but they were vastly owned by one company. We need the right to use these sort of therapeutics. We need the right to use CRISPR technology and other technologies that come out in the future without, having to answer to companies. We need to answer to the world. We need to answer to disease.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Very well said. Let me throw in a couple from Chelsea Lee Gilbert. She says, is Liz using any other therapies, drugs, vitamins, treatments aside from her own gene therapies?
No, I do take vitamins. I said no first because I assumed that she was, talking about some of the bigger players. I'm not taking hormones or anything like that. I'm just I'm taking vitamins, and that's about it.
And you work out.
And I work out. I've been working out. Yeah, I'm always working out, but I've really been focused on really good health because I want a good outcome. I want an applicable outcome. What could happen in the best case scenario for people under the same circumstance?
The second question that Chelsea asks is, on her AMA, Liz says that she keeps a diary or a journal, which you've mentioned already, about what she thinks and she feels. Is there anything major, new thing that you wrote there recently that perhaps you'd like to share with us?
Oh boy. That's funny because actually it's gotten rather boring because all my speculations and all my little fears, I would sneeze and go, oh, and I'd get down there and write it. I have sneezed. Maybe maybe this is the last sneeze of my life. No, I don't think there's nothing recent that would be spectacular. Well, maybe one thing is that I did have increase in weight, and yet a decrease in the size of my waist.
Oh, but muscle is heavier than other tissue.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Yeah. So I lost an inch off my waist, but I got heavier. So that's probably, there's a good sign for you.
Interesting. Very good. Yeah. Okay. And what's the biggest misconception about the experiment with these two genetic therapies that you've undertaken? That something that kind of really annoys you, perhaps, and that you want to sort of dismantle or clarify once and for all?
Oh, geez, what would that be? I guess I would like to dismantle the fact that that they needed to be done separately. Uh-huh. I think that this is just as valid a science as any other. What else? I would like. I can't change the trolls, but of course, you're going along and we get a nice article out, and then somebody will say, who's never read one of the papers, who's never, put their time and energy into it, they'll be like, oh, this can't be true, or something like that. I kind of wish that, people before just making negative comments, because they tend to, people like to be negative before they like to be positive, it appears. So the minute somebody says, well, I think I can debunk this without having ever read anything or know what's going on in this science or anything else, I wish that, people would take the time to actually make an educated comment, I guess, and to realize that this isn't science fiction, that this is science fact, that this type of technology had been around for a long time.
So Liz, I've been enjoying our conversation today very much, but unfortunately I've kept you for way too long and our interview has to come to an end. So let me ask you, for those of our viewers who are interested in following up with the latest developments with your experiment, what's the best place for them to do that?
Well, right now, things are pretty quiet on our end. We're gathering data, and that data will have to be analyzed just like anything else. I mean, we don't want to come out and say, oh, we've waiving, one result. So it's going to take some time. I would say that, keeping up to date with the BioViva website, which is bioviva-science.com, would be the place to start. I'm also on Facebook. BioViva Sciences Inc. is on Facebook as well. And that's probably the most updated site. We have a couple people working on that, and they will get out information as it comes. I do tend to answer people's messages when I can, but vastly until we have really strong data, there's not too much to talk about. It's a wait and see. Know that I'm doing my best here to stay healthy, to get the best results. I'm living a very healthy lifestyle, and I'm working every day for your future.
And we appreciate that very much. Indeed, both working for our future in terms of defeating death, postponing aging, improving our or diminishing muscle wasting disease like sarcopenia. But what would be the final message, the parting sort of idea that you'd like to impart on us perhaps today at the end of this conversation with you?
You always ask a good question. You ask a lot of good questions, and they get me thinking. I think that I would like to depart and just say that no matter what happens to me, we have to keep going on. I believe that I will be fine. We did a lot of research. We were very calculated in doing this. We have to be pioneers. We have to pioneer a future that we want to see. We can't go out there living through other people's fantasies. You know, we can't go out there being negative and thinking that the world will get better. You know, put your best foot forward, be a pioneer, and if you can't, support those people who are doing that. You know, really look into what's going on in the world. Find something that you're passionate about and try to make a positive change in the world. You know, don't be a troll. You know, don't it's okay to have your opinion, and your opinion can be negative, but, you know, don't be a person that's trying to defeat positive things. Go find the thing that inspires you, that makes your life worth living, and do it. And I mean, that's the only thing that changes the world. It's the only thing that ever has. So
be a pioneer.
Be a pioneer. Definitely. Be a pioneer. Do something different. This is your life. I want you to really think about your life. I want you to really analyze it. And I want you to be positive about it. I don't want you to get depressed, because life is hard. Life is tough. It's tough for every single one of us. But, you know, look at your life and make a positive decision for you and the people around you. And, you know, I mean, sometimes even the people you don't like very much, you just make the world a better place. Challenge yourself.
Liz Parrish, thank you very much for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
If you guys enjoyed this show, you can help me make it better in a couple of ways. You can go and write a review on iTunes, you can leave a comment on YouTube, or you can simply make a donation. Singularity.